ancient astronauts, visitors from other planets, from other star systems, or other galaxies been documented in the Bible? This UFOs and Aliens in the Bible series will examine particular stories that will have you asking yourself, what do you believe? We've all seen it before. Moses raises his staff and says, "Behold the glory of the Lord." And instantaneously the Red Sea parts. The children of Israel will cross the Red Sea on dry land, being pursued by their enemies, the Egyptians. And then Moses again commands the waters to consume his enemy, the Egyptians. An accurate depiction, right? Or at least that's what they tell us and what they want us to believe. Let's see what the Bible says on this episode of Aliens and UFOs in the Bible. Hello, welcome to another edition of UFOs and Aliens in the Bible. Today's story is about the Red Sea crossing, and I chose to do this episode on the Red Sea crossing because the whole story of Egypt and God fighting the Egyptian gods always have fascinated me. But today I want to focus on just one little piece of the puzzle, and that's the Red Sea crossing. If you saw in the clip earlier, all the movies, the Ten Commandments, Prince of Egypt, all the different types of representation of the Red Sea crossing shows that the Israelites crossed over immediately after Moses stretched his rod over the water. But I want to look at what the Bible actually says about that today. I'm going to be reading from Exodus 14, starting at verse 19. And the angel of God, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud went from before them and stood behind them. So it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. Thus it was a cloud and darkness to the one, and it gave light by night to the other, so that one did not come near the other all that night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind. Here's the key point: all night, all that night. It made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went after them in the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen. Now that's Exodus 19 through 23. But what fascinates me is every time I've heard this story taught in church, depicted in films, it always appeared that the seas were divided instantly. Now, during my studies, if you saw the first episode of the series where I talked about my experience of the fiery ball, it kind of makes me wonder a little bit more about this story as well. Because of the fiery ball experience, I began to study other phenomena, UFOs, and just all type of different things. And what I found in my studies is UFOs have been described as being clouds. They've been described as being illuminated objects. Some people say that there's fire in them. Fire comes out at the tail of them. If you look at our own technology, you look at the turbine engine and fire comes out of the tail of it. So I was always wondering, after researching UFO stuff, studying theology, and just looking at everything that's taking place in the world, if perhaps the reason that it took all night for the Red Sea to be dried was perhaps maybe there was some technology involved. I've always been taught that God is omnipotent, omnipresent, all powerful and able to just do miracles instantaneously. So the picture that was painted for me about God in my mind, and I think for most people, is all of those things that I just stated. I would think that the God that was described to me could instantaneously dry the Red Sea up, that the walls would form instantaneously and not take all night. So here's my hypothesis. And again, I'm always saying in these episodes that this is just my theory and I could be wrong. But perhaps this was some sort of mothership that did disguise itself in the form of a cloud. And the separation that took all night was perhaps some form of exhaust system that formed the pillar of fire. So you have the cloud, and then you have the fire separating the Israelites from the Egyptians, while it says a strong east wind blew and separated the waters. So if I took a hairdryer right now in a sink of water and blew on that water, it would start to part itself, and depending on how powerful it is, it could actually separate the water until I get down to the base of the sink. In fact, let's go do a demo with the hairdryer and some water in a pan. Okay, let's test that theory. Ordinary hairdryer. My wife promises me that this thing isn't that powerful. There's a 125 volt and a 250 volt setting on this hairdryer. So let's imagine for a minute that this is some type of propulsion system, jet propulsion system, engine, or something on some type of flying vehicle. What I'm going to do is start by setting this on low. Imagine this is one end of the shore, this is another end of the shore of the Red Sea, and we put a little bit of water in here. Didn't want to put too much because I'm assuming it's going to splash all over the place, but the wall of water that divided all night would have been separating itself in the middle with a little air behind it. So I'm going to start it on low. Alright, low doesn't seem to do very much at all. So what we're going to do is put it on high. So you can see the base. If you look right there, I'm able to get the base, and so if you can imagine the strength of the east wind causing, I'm going to stop this now before I mess my wife's hair dry up, get electrocuted, and my wife, I'm sure, isn't going to be very happy about this either because she has to clean this up. So perhaps if this was some sort of technology, some huge mothership or something, Could it not be doing the same thing? You have the exhaust, which is the pillar of fire separating the Egyptians. You also have the cloud, representation of the ship to disguise itself. And then you have the force. Think of an airplane. The force that comes from behind the engine of an airplane actually can knock, it would actually blow you away. It has been shown, big 747 engines blowing over cars and trucks and stuff. That's some powerful stuff. Now, if we measure our technology based on the technology that could possibly have taken place with the Red Sea crossing, isn't it feasible to think that perhaps maybe there was some sort of technology, the same sort of exhaust system, the same sort of force coming out of an engine to separate the waters? And maybe it was more than one ship. Maybe it was several. Because from my understanding, the Red Sea is quite a distance from one shore to the other. So that's just my theory. A little food for thought. Thanks for tuning in today. Again, I'm Gerald. This is UFOs and Aliens in the Bible, where we address just questions about the Bible, just things in the Bible that I've always been baffled about. Again, we have many more episodes coming up. A lot of stuff to talk about. I'll try to keep them brief, just like this one. But go back, read that full chapter of Exodus. Read it word for word. Forget about how you've been taught and read it. And then think. Just think about some of the hypothetical situations that could have possibly taken place. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel.